Hello, welcome to Stageworthy. I'm Phil Rickaby, the host and producer of this podcast. Stageworthy is Canada's theatre podcast, and on Stageworthy, I talk to theatre makers of all kinds, from actors to directors to playwrights, stage managers. If they make theatre in Canada, I talk to them. Some of the people I talk to are household names, and the rest are people that I really think you should get to know. This is an extra episode because of the Toronto Fringe, and I'm trying to fit in as many people and shows as I can. So this is the second episode this week. Next week, we will have 2 episodes focusing on the Toronto Fringe. And on June 22nd, I'll be hosting a Toronto Fringe preview with several theater writers and podcasters and influencers around Toronto. I will be talking to Janine from A View from the Box, Ryan from the Cup podcast, Alexandra from Being Dramatic, and Ryan from Plates and Playbills. This is going to be a conversation where we look forward to Fringe, talk about the shows that have already piqued our interest, maybe what some wildcard shows are, and just generally talk about Fringe and what we're excited about so that you can get excited for the Toronto Fringe Festival. So make sure that you look for that. You'll find links to that on Facebook and YouTube, and you'll be able to watch the live stream in both of those places when it happens on June 22nd at 7 p.m. But in this episode, I will be talking to Victoria Sullivan. Victoria is an actor, producer, playwright, theater maker based in Hamilton, and she is coming to the Toronto Fringe with a show called Minimum. And I really enjoyed learning about this show. It premiered at last year's Hamilton Fringe Festival, and we will be seeing it this year at the Toronto Fringe. So take a listen to my conversation with Victoria Sullivan. Well, Victoria Sullivan, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Why don't we jump straight in? Tell me about your show at the Toronto Fringe, Minimum.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having me, Phil. This is the second time we're doing this production. I'm with my company's the Intergalactic Federation of Space Beers, as well as Be Victorious. I actually applied as Be Victorious, and then, in the time span, am now under Intergalactic Federation, which is always awesome and definitely not confusing to the audience. So that's great. We had the global premiere of the show at the Hamilton Fringe Festival in 2025. We won Best in Venue with the Players Guild, and we are really excited to bring it to a Toronto audience. This is a show about a newly elected Premier of Ontario being forced to live on minimum wage. Because I always had the question, how quickly would things change if politicians had to live kind of on the lowest common denominator? So that's sort of the question that I asked of where this show came from. And we get into kind of absurdist comedy and how we answer it. And I really feel like in the last, I'm going to say 4 years, but it's maybe more like 8, politics has gotten just crazy enough that whatever I put in a script can kind of be matched in real life by the absurdity of what's going on.
It is hard. I can imagine that it's hard for people who write for publications like The Onion or The Beaverton have a hard time doing satire when everything in politics, both in Canada and the U.S., seems, especially in Ontario and in the U.S., just seems so absurd.
Yeah. I mean, how do you one up some of the things that are going on right now? It's a bit ridiculous. So
the idea of a premier having to live on minimum wage is fascinating. I remember years ago, I think there was a push for some of the MPs to do that kind of experiment where they would live on minimum wage for a week.
Right.
Which is like not enough time to really be impacted, right? If you're going to really find out what it's like to live on minimum wage, it has to be 2 months.
Oh, I was going to say
a year would be amazing. Like, to make a politician be like, all right, you're going to live on minimum wage for a year, and that's how you're going to afford everything. And if things would change really quick, you're really right about that.
I would watch that show too.
I mean, if we were to televise it, if we were to like just televise, like just try to figure things out, that would be amazing. Now, how did what was it that sparked the idea for this play?
It was moving to Toronto. I grew up in Guelph and I went to the University of Guelph. I moved to Toronto in 2011 and came out of Guelph with a theater studies degree, focusing on performance and acting. And like a lot of actors, got a serving job. And I think minimum wage for serving was around like 8.25-ish at the time. And rent in Toronto hadn't gone like, it was still really expensive, but it hadn't sort of hit the 2016, like, jump that it did. And even then, I was like, "How do people do this? Like, how do people live for minimum wage and live in Toronto?" And that was sort of the ongoing question, and then I was like, "How like, why don't politicians do this and sort of make some changes?" And now minimum wage has gone up a lot since then, which is fantastic, but so is cost of
Yeah.
living. And we're in a bit of a cost of living crisis right now. And it's not keeping pace. Like, it's not keeping pace at
No.
all.
I mean, even
So
people who
I
aren't
think
on minimum wage are having trouble, right? So if you're on
oh,
minimum wage, you are. I remember years ago, I was like, okay, so the way that everybody that I know who is not in an office job is able to survive is by having 3 to 4 part-time minimum wage jobs.
yeah.
And
Yep.
even then, they're living with roommates in order to like
Yeah.
survive. It's an insane proposition.
Yeah. I feel like you read the script. Like, they have this conversation.
No, I've
They
just
have this
lived
conversation.
a life like a regular person. Now, you mentioned that you were living in Toronto, but you studied in Guelph. Now you're in
Mhm.
Hamilton?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
That I mean, that's a trajectory. What is I obviously you went to Guelph, you studied theater, you came to Toronto because that's what you do, and then what took you to Hamilton?
So my in-laws are in Hamilton, and affordability. Like, that's the easy answer, especially the big thing is changes in the industry. Like, we no longer have, less than 24 hours notice to be at man casting at 2 p.m. It's a completely different ballgame with self-tapes. It's very reasonable to be, like, a far like, kind of on the outskirt, GTA-H, to be on the outskirts of the city now and still be an actor, still be a performer, still work. Like, it's reasonable to have a full-time job post-pandemic for an actor, whereas it was not before. Unless you had, one of those rare professions that allowed you a lot of flexibility on very short notice, which is why most people were servers. It was kind of the answer to that question. It was flexible, good enough money that you could survive, and allowed you short notice to be at a casting house the next day if you needed to be. So it's really like post-pandemic is what allowed that move to happen.
What about the theater scene in Hamilton outside of the Hamilton Fringe? I know years ago I had a friend who lived in Hamilton. He was constantly trying to convince me to move to Hamilton. In fact, when I was doing the Hamilton Fringe in 2016, that was in the middle of Hamilton's like art is the new steel movement, which I think has pretty much just fallen away. But what do you find about the theater scene in Hamilton?
It's really great. There's HFTCO, Hamilton I'm not gonna get the name right. Hamilton Fringe Theater Company? Oh gosh, Franny, Chris, I'm so sorry. They do a lot to bolster the arts. They have sort of year-round programming that goes on, and I'm obviously in their target audience, and I get advertised to a lot, but I'll go out to any of the festivals that they're doing. I've been very, very lucky. I don't know if it's Sullivan and Luck of the Irish, but 4 years in a row, I've been drawn in one either Toronto or Hamilton Fringes. So from 2023 onwards, I've had a show in one. I've never gotten drawn in both, but I always get one and I'm happy for that one. So I've been lucky enough to do 24 and 25 Hamilton Fringes, and it's great. It's still a growing community, but a lot of people are really supportive. There's a lot of, like, very talented artists. I've been blown away by some of the shows that I've seen. It's great. It's growing, it's thriving, it's interesting, it's funny. I'm a big comedy person, so yeah, it's great. I really love it, and I love that I'm still exploring it.
With minimum, you come bringing that to
Mhm.
the Toronto Fringe. I mean, you did that last year at the Hamilton Fringe. How does
Yeah.
having a kick at a fringe festival out of town kind of give you a leg up coming to Toronto?
I mean short answer, I don't really know yet because 'cause I've never traveled a show, But for me as a playwright, it's I've already had a kick at this can. I already know what jokes work, what parts of the story work, and, like, even when I'm on stage, I'm like, do we need to make cuts here? Like, do I need to cut part of this dialogue to get it moving faster?" That's both my inability to shut off the playwright and just the playwright in me always being a little bit of a voice in the back of my head. I don't know if you ever have that when you're doing podcasts, but or your art.
I will tell you when I was performing my solo show The Commandment on Fringe tours, the writer would never shut up.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, just like be in the middle of a scene, in the back of my head, the writer was like, "That didn't hit that time. Maybe we need to adjust the wording." Oh wait, I know what could go.
Yeah.
There's something we need a little something here. We could throw something in. We'll try that tomorrow. Like just like this, like in the back of my head, and part of me is like, "Shut up, we're busy." You know?
Yeah, you're mid-performance. You've got a lot on your plate. You're kinda working on something. Yeah. I find absolutely the same thing, and there's also like, there's jokes that I didn't get they didn't hit until the last night, like our 7th performance, and I was like, "Oh, I just needed to throw an F-bomb in there. Okay, I
Yeah.
got it." Or take it out, whatever it happens to be. So, I think we've already had a run, and I'm lucky enough that we're bringing the same cast back. The director wasn't available, but I love what this new director is bringing to the work, so it's less of a remount and more of, like, a slightly different interpretation of the material, which I actually love. I love that we are able to pull from the strengths of already having a run to go into the next run with. And I find the Hamilton crowd and the Toronto crowds are very different even when I'm watching theater. So I'm really excited to see how the Toronto crowd reacts to this. I have no idea. I never know. I thought last year at Fringe, people were gonna be kind of over politics, like, just with the drama of the world, especially our neighbors to the south and a little bit our current premier. We're just gonna be kind of over it and saturated, but not at all. We had really great reactions. We had really great crowds. Yeah, I'm really excited to see how Toronto reacts to this, and also what FIFA at the same time as Fringe does. Like, can I even get to Toronto? Who
I'm really
knows?
stressed
We'll
about
see.
it. I'm really stressed about it. There,
Me too.
I was talking with Rachel Kennedy at the Fringe office just briefly. We were like,
Mhm.
should there be like a published like, here's how to deal with Fringe and FIFA at the same time? Now, fortunately, FIFA is almost over when Fringe starts, but there's like a couple of days of overlap, so it's gonna be an interesting time.
We have one show, I think it's the 10th, where it's just like that show is the bane of my existence. It's not our ASM is worried about getting there. Our stage manager's not available, so we have a sub stage manager. Like, it's just there's a FIFA game going. We're at Factory Theater. We're on Factory Main Stage too, so we're as far
You're as far west. You're
west.
as close, almost as close to the stadium as you can possibly get with a Fringe
Oh,
show.
yeah.
So that does present some. I would go the day before, or at least like way early in the morning, just like yeah,
Alright, we're moving
yeah,
we're moving. The whole cast is moving
you
to
just have to
Toronto.
crash somewhere overnight the day before. That's all.
We're just gonna leave lots of time, like, I think our call time's probably gonna be 2 hours before the show, and I think we're actually gonna leave 3 hours before that, just in case we get into Carmageddon, or the GO train goes down, or, like, it derails,
I
or
will tell you, when I was doing again in 2016, I was going to
Mhm.
Hamilton to do my show, and my director and I left at, I think we left at 1 in the afternoon. There we were trying to get there for the Fringe opening, like they have like their opening, like they like so everybody does excerpts from their shows, things like that, opening
I'm
ceremonies.
already nervous about you hearing this
And
story.
so we figured we would arrive. I would drop my things off at my billet. We'd go and get dinner, and then we would go to the thing. We'd have plenty of time. The traffic took us so long that we had to be calling the organizers and be like, "We think we're gonna make it, but there's a chance that we're coming. We're just like stuck in traffic." It was like we were arriving at 6:30 in the afternoon, like almost like at showtime for this thing.
And what like, how much leeway did you have before your show
Oh, it wasn't
started?
the show, but it was like the opening ceremonies. We were
Okay.
supposed to show up and do like the excerpt. We hadn't done like any tech, but like it took like so long to get there. So you can never trust the traffic between Toronto and Hamilton, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and it is a concern, and I don't know that we have a proper mitigation of that. Like, it's just leave really early, leave lots of time. We so we're debating on a prop that might have to be carried in and out, and my concern is if we have to abandon the car by the side of the road and jump on a GO train or something, what do we do with that prop? And I'm trying to avoid having that prop, like, traveling with us and leaving it at Factory Theater, but our because this is set in the premier's office, and he's got his aide with him. They both have desks, and our storage space is 2 by 5. So we're already trying to figure out 2 desks in a 2 by 5 space because I'm not carrying a desk up and down those factory stairs every day. Plus other props, plus. So it's a challenge. It's an ongoing
Yeah.
discussion.
I mean, the whole like how do you store the things that you need at the Fringe Theater is always the big challenge when you do have a small storage space. It that kind of Tetrising is a really learned skill.
Yeah, our my plan hopefully is to go up. Like we're gonna go up. I don't know how factory feels about that, but
I mean, you'll still be within the space. They didn't tell you anything about height.
they didn't say anything
There
about
you go.
height.
There you
So
go.
I think we're good.
Now, you were mentioning your past shows at Fringes. You had Daniel's T Infernal Latte. I'm getting that, stumbling over that in Toronto in
Everybody
2023. Always Hazy in Hamilton, 2024. You had the minimum in the Hamilton Fringe in 2025. That is a relatively solid run. You were talking about the luck that you have at lotteries. It's pretty good. It's pretty good considering,
is
like, I know so many people, myself included, who apply many, many years and don't get drawn.
yeah. Well, I when I first moved to the city, you're in theater school and they're like, "Apply to Fringe, try Fringe." And I applied for I don't even know how many years in a row and didn't get drawn. And then 2023, I did my master's at TMU, and Daniel T's Inferno Latte was actually my thesis project. It was based on Dante's Inferno, which is why it's Danielle T's, and that sort of was the question of what happens if we modernize the entry requirements into hell because Dante, takes a stroll through hell. What happens if we modernize that and it's women walking through hell, modern day women instead of men? Like, how does that change things? So we did a 60-minute show based on that premise that I was in the process of defending my master's thesis, which was a television pilot, and adapting it into a stage play that had to be resolved in 60 minutes. So it was a challenge. And I defended my thesis on August 4th. And my advisor was like, "Yeah, there was like a 10-week period where I just didn't hear from you." And I was like, "Oh, that's me trying to get a full staged production up on stage at Tarragon while still continuing the drafts of my thesis while giving notes. Wow, wow, wow." And he was like, "Ah, interesting." And I was like, "But, here's the critic feedback from my show of this production." And he was like, "Well, not many people have that in their thesis defense." And I was like, "Well, that's the trade-off for those 10 weeks that you did not hear from
There you
me."
go.
Where I
It's
was
something concrete that you could take forward with you.
yeah. Somebody said, one of the quotes was, "More comedy than the Divine Comedy," and I think I almost swooned when I read
I
it.
mean,
I was like, "That is
like,
that's going up
that is
stone."
that is a pull quote beyond, like, that is, like, the perfect
Yeah.
pull quote to put on, like, posters and everything.
Yes. My when I die, that's going on my
Yeah.
headstone, like,
You
are you kidding me?
that's perfect stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now,
it's a
you
good
mentioned
one.
at the start about how the minimum is being produced by to be is it to be victorious or the be
E
victorious?
Victorious is the production company,
And
yeah.
also I'm checking the notes, the Intergalactic Federation of Space Beers.
That's correct.
What is the cohesion between those two separate names?
So we're sort of crossing between film and television. I work in film and television in my day job, and I've been producing short films for 10 years now, and I've done the 48-hour film challenge, and for most of those, I've run under the Intergalactic Federation of Space Beers. which most people just say space beers, which it's catchy. Now people are like, do you produce beer? And I'm like, no, we don't. We produce film. I can see the confusion there. But I applied under Be Victorious. I've always kind of written and thought as a playwright and started out as Be Victorious, applied under Be Victorious. Intergalactic Federation applied as well, but did not get drawn. And I did with Be Victorious. And so that's what we're running under. But last year with Minimum, we ran under the Intergalactic Federation of Space Beers. So we're trying to sort of mitigate that brand confusion. I don't think we're doing a great job, but we're doing I'm not a brand, I'm not a marketer. We're working on it. It's a work in progress. So we're both Space Beers and Be Victorious. But for the purposes of this fringe, you can find us under Be Victorious.
Got it.
Yeah.
I have a question about your main character in Minimum.
Yes, please.
He's a newly elected Premier of Ontario. He is not named Doug Ford.
No, he is not. I'm pretty intent on not getting sued. It's one of my professional goals. And for me, if you make that a real person, it doesn't give me the freedom as a writer that it does to sort of carve out the story that I want to carve. And then you're casting for a real person. I'm worried about slander and libel. And there's a lot of things that I actually really like about Doug Ford. There's some not great things that I comment on in the play, but there's a lot of it's both praise and criticism, and I just don't want to get into this. This is political satire for the purpose of comedy. It's not like an assassination of Doug Ford's character or political career. I wanted to just kind of avoid that as much as possible, which is why it's a newly elected premier. And it's a lot more fun to write. It's a lot more fun to write someone who is just coming into this fresh versus Doug Ford, who has not only a history of politics himself, but a family of politics. Like Rob Ford was our mayor for a number of years. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot more freedom to do it this way. So
absolutely. It does mean that you don't have to find somebody to do a Doug Ford impression. And it does tie you to his political record.
I actually try really hard in this play to kind of stay in the middle of the road. So we don't really go left, right, red, blue. We kind of leave it up to audience interpretation of who this character is and what platform he's representing. But he presents himself as someone that represents the people. And that's what we kind of go forward with.
Sure. I imagine that you can, without having the character be a Doug Ford, as you sort of mentioned, you can sort of allude to things that Doug Ford has done,
Oh, his character owns a jet for sure. For sure he does.
But has he ever swallowed a bee?
No.
See, that's an experience that he missed out on.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Mostly because we couldn't get a bee. We auditioned bees and just none of them were right for the part. And pretty universally, they were not willing to be swallowed and eaten.
They're generally also really terrible at taking direction.
Yes. Go away. No. And the unions don't even get me started. Ugh.
How do you see, more specifically, this character in conversation with what's or not in the conversation with what's happening in our world now?
Oh, it's such a broad, open-ended question. What I hope this character does is leave people thoughtful. Leave people of what if this did happen? What if this was the premiere? And also with an appreciation that it is impossible to please everybody. It's just you're never going to happen. You're never going to unless there's a perfect politician out there. But even this person, even my character isn't able to please everyone. It's just politics is hard. Politics is hard. That's kind of
I know that there's a phrase that I've read in reference to this show, the soul-sucking politics of politics.
Yeah.
What is that phrase? It's doing a lot of work. What does that mean to you?
I think it means when I watch politicians and they'll go, and I'm going to generalize this, they'll go to a rally for X and say, I'm absolutely behind X. X is great. We're gonna go for X if I get elected. And then they'll go to the opposing party or the opposing rally and say, I am absolutely for Y. why is what I'm going to support, I'm going to do this. And I think in a way that is kind of selling your soul, you have to kind of make a broad generalization of promises to everybody. And I don't know that it's possible to please everybody and to keep all of those promises. So that's a little bit of that's one of my favorite lines from the play. And it is a little bit of just a play on the fact of recognition of the fact that you have to try to be everything to everyone, which is impossible. How do you not sell your soul when you're doing that?
I think that might be why there's two kinds of politicians. There are those who do one term and then they're done. And then there are those who just sort of like go all the way in, and you can't pry them out. They're like a tick that's got in there. You have to get the tweezers and pull them out.
Right.
And I think that part of that might be that for some people, speaking out of both sides of their mouth at the same time is a very difficult thing to wrap around.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree with that. And I think it's hard to well, is it hard to be genuine when you're doing that? Like, do you mean it when you're saying both things to both? How can you possibly when you know that you can't do both? But also, if you mean it, who knows? It's just a recognition that there is a tightrope to walk, and that there can sometimes be a cost to walking it.
I am curious about, because I think, we do have this as a problem in our politics in Canada, politicians trying to appeal to everybody. And it's generally a thing that we see in politics all around. And then you have somebody like the mayor of New York who seems to be doing exactly what he said he was going to do.
And like doing it well.
So does that mean, I think it does. Does that mean that that if you just tell people, if you just promise to do things that might be good for the majority of people, and then you do them, that's a better political solution?
I mean, maybe, but that comes back to your point. Like, is that mayor going to get reelected? Is he going to get funding for his campaigns? Or is the fact that he has kind of taxed a lot of the rich people going to come back to bite him? Like, I think that's part of the tightrope balance, the tightrope act that you have to walk when you're a politician. And that's like to be seen. We'll see.
We'll have to see in
Who
4
knows?
years. He's got a good long run before that happens. I do think that the rich people that are being taxed will only be slightly less rich in 4 years. And so they're still going to be rich people. So I think they're going to be okay.
You know what? I hope they are okay.
Sure.
I hope they are slightly less rich, but still okay.
I definitely hope they're slightly less rich. In terms of like, you're in the Factory Theater, which is one, one of the places where people go for fringe theater, right? If you didn't look at the fringe program at all and you were like, I'm going to see something at fringe, you would go to Factory Theater just to find something, right? You'd be there.
I hope
In terms of that particular venue, are you in the main space, or are you in the
we're in
you're
the
in
main space. Yeah.
how do you feel? Well, how does that space make you feel?
Terror, just straight up terror. Because well, hey, that's an honest answer, right? Because in Fringe, you are wearing so many hats, you're doing so many things that, it's kind of me and the team responsible for marketing. And so there's 200 seats to fill in Factory Theater. And I'm kind of basing that off past Fringes. We've been lucky enough we've built our runs every year, as you do at Fringe. But the fact that we're selling out our last performances and kind of have been consistently since my first year doing Fringe tells me that we can, I don't know if we can hit it, but we can try for it. We can try for a 200 seat venue, and maybe not. Who knows? It might be a horrible disaster, but I'm okay with that risk. I'm okay with taking a chance at it. But like right now, we're about a month out, a month and 2 days. And like the overwhelming fear is terror with like 1% excitement. That is going to start to switch as the month goes forward, as we get the show more built, as we get, our venue tour is in 5 days, as we get the venue tour out of the way, and as we get tech out of the way, that I'm hoping will switch. But just from a marketing perspective right now, just terror, 99% terror. But I am really grateful that we have Factory. It was the venue that I wanted. I would have been equally okay with Soul Pepper because it's the hub. I love the distillery. I've been in the distillery for a long time. Like, I'm an East End girl when I was in Toronto, so I would have been great with both of those. I also would have been fine with Tarragon. We had Tarragon in 2023, and it was a great venue. I think it's another place that people go to find fringe shows. So really excited about that one too. But I've never been in Factory, so this is a bucket list for me, and I'm really happy that we're here.
Absolutely. You alluded to the many hats that have to be worn in order to
Yeah.
put on a fringe show. How do you have a plan for finding the balance between all of the things that need to be done? Do you know how you're going
Um,
to walk that tightrope?
I'm lucky enough that this is a built show. So we're using a lot of the same marketing. It's not like we're coming up with new graphics. We've got the same image that we did as last year, which I hope works really well. Like, a lot of this is the first time that a lot of that work has already been done. And I've got 3 fringes under my belt to know what works and what doesn't. So we do take out a full, I've got my lovely fringe program here, and we are on page 48 with a full page ad, which I'm really happy about and I think is money well spent. And then we'll put we'll put a bit of money into like social media marketing, specifically targeting Toronto theater goers, and then just fingers crossed reaching out to publications, seeing what works. I was really lucky that Fresh Air last year wanted to do a piece on us. So I actually have a radio interview with Fresh Air with Ismaila Alpha from CBC from last year talking about the show before it went up, or I think we had just opened, so I didn't know how it was going to go, but I think audiences responded really well, and I'm just fingers crossed. Like, there is always an element of fingers crossed with Fringe, of kind of A/B testing of what works and what doesn't. And I don't know that you ever really get a full, like, I mean, tell me what you've found with Fringes, but do you ever get a full answer to what works and what doesn't in Fringe marketing? Or are you just sort of like, this has worked before, let's see if it works again?
There are people that I know who are, like, I would say that they are marketing whizzes. Like, they
Interesting.
put together their marketing materials. I always sing the praise of Jillian English. Jillian lives in Australia now, doesn't do the Toronto Fringe any longer. But Jillian would always, like, every show starts from the point of marketing. Like, Jillian would
Smart.
say, if I can't think of a way to market this show, if I can't think of how to advertise this show, I won't even write it. And I don't go that far, but I when I'm thinking of stuff, I'm thinking of my imagery well before this show, and I try to front load as much as possible. I think the thing that works is strong, catchy imagery
Yeah.
and lightning in a bottle. That's all you like, unless you are. There are some groups that, like, if Sex T-Rex, if they announce they're going to be doing a show, they're going to
They're
sell out,
great.
right?
Yep.
They're not going to. They don't even have to try. There are people who are known entities. If they do a show, that's going to sell out. But that's almost the only sure thing that you can find in Fringe. Everything else is just hoping that the audience digs your show.
Yeah. And it's still, I mean, what is the angle with this? Do you take a political angle? Do you, like, do you go with the playwriting angle? Like, what's the sort of, I do not come from a marketing standpoint. I come from a story standpoint. And so I'm like, well, for me, what is interesting about this? Like, what, and I would love to see a politician live on like, I would watch that show. I would need I do think I need longer than 2 months, though. I'd wanna see them do it for a year.
Yeah.
They're kinda
Yeah. I think that as a pitch is enough to draw people in. And you don't have to say Doug Ford, but you there's enough hate for Doug Ford that if you can be like, here, this is the thing. If you can make it sound like there's a buffoon in the premier's office, people will, like, I think they'll eat that up in the current climate.
I think so too, and we absolutely address a lot of, and we did last year. Like, the one thing I have done is modernize this. We really played on the speed cameras that were everywhere, and one of the things that the premier experienced was he drove a Porsche, and he loved his Porsche, which bad things happen to the Porsche, but every day in the mail, he gets another robot speeding ticket. And I've had that happen. Like, my partner and I were driving the same car in 2 different cities. He was leaving Toronto at 1 a.m. and I was going to Guelph to visit my parents at 6 p.m. on the same day, and we both got speeding tickets. And I was like, "Come on. Come on. You just put those in. You just lowered the speed limit to 40, like, and you just get it in the mail 3 weeks later and all of a sudden owe somebody $85
Yeah.
for something you apparently
Yeah.
did." And my brake lights were on in that picture. Like, I was slowing down, but I was still 11 kilometers over the speed
The
limit,
robot
so
doesn't care if you're slowing down. The robot cares what speed you're going at the moment it takes the picture.
Yeah, I was like, "But the brake
Yeah.
lights, and there's no police officer to argue
The robot
with."
has no
So
pity. The robot has no pity.
none. No mercy, no pity. So that was a really strong element of last year, which we've taken out, and now it's freedom of information. So there is a bit of a modernization that had to be done just to keep current, keep like relevant issues, keep it topical, that sort of thing. And gas prices, the airport, the jet, there's so much to work with.
Yeah.
There really is.
Yeah. In terms of marketing, I mean, there's been so many changes in the last 5 years. Well, since the pandemic, the fringe, the culture of fringe has changed. People don't flyer lines anymore.
Yeah.
And I think I noticed that last year as a thing, that the only people who were flyer lines were touring artists.
Interesting.
And locals were not. And in fact, it seemed so strange when somebody was like, "Can I tell you about my show?" And you'd be like, "Nobody's told me about their show. This whole fringe. Yes, tell me about your show." But it is interesting because that does take away part of the fringe promotion, which used to be, which I hated, by the way. It was my nightmare. But it's part of fringing, having to flyer lines. And that's gone. So we have to find other ways to get the word out.
I mean, I've never 2023 was my first fringe and I've never flyered lines. I don't know if it's a post-pandemic, but that was still like 23, there was a lot of masks still. There was a lot of people were kind of just getting back into like large communal spaces with a big crowd. I feel like even outside it was a bit of a different vibe. Like we'd kind of gotten used to the 6 feet, the separation. It was a bit more of a I don't want to say unapproachability, but that's kind of what it
Yeah.
was. I wonder if that's been replaced by social media now. Like if we're just on our phones and on those screens so much
I think
that's like the equivalent.
see if social media advertising was accurate, if it was something that you could rely on, I would say yes. But there have been a lot of changes to the way that social media marketing and social media ad buys goes that just to get completely into the weeds for anybody who's not interested in marketing and advertising, but like I think that social media advertising is no longer the reliable thing that it once was, because more of the devices are limiting the information that the social media platforms can get, which means the targeting is less accurate. And so that means that you could do a big ad buy and the people who don't, and I think people ignore ads more than ever. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to utilize, I think, the reels and TikTok and to try to get video. But I think having a striking image in the program is one of the strongest things, and I think one of the reasons why people don't flyer anymore is because you could sell out your whole show before the Fringe even opens, right? Like, I'm an old man, and back in the olden days of Fringe, they would hold back a certain number of tickets to buy at the door. So you could buy some in advance, and there'd be about half the tickets that you could buy at the door. So if you didn't get them online, you would run out of the theater and you would line up and like hope that you could get a ticket for the show that everybody was clamoring to see. And that doesn't happen anymore. So you could buy all the tickets online. And I think like what you're doing, like trying to reach out to the media and trying to get the striking images, try to get all of that stuff out there. It's all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's a different I remember getting into rush lines and being like so upset when I couldn't get into shows. And yet some of the stats from last year, like Toronto Fringe had the biggest year that it's ever
Yeah.
had. So it's not for the lack of
It's not for
audience.
lack of
And
audience,
I
because this is the thing about Fringe festivals
Mhm,
that's different from producing theater at any other time of the year, and that is that there is
mhm.
an audience that is actively looking for things to see, which
Yeah.
doesn't happen any other time of the year. You're, like, begging people
Yeah.
to come to see your show any other time of the year, but during Fringe, there's an audience that's hungry and looking for things to see.
And I wonder, and we actually touch on this in the play a little bit. I wonder how much of it is the rise of AI and the fact that you can't always trust what you're seeing now, and the fact that theater is a tangible thing. Like, you are in the atmosphere of the theater. You know that the people on stage are actors on stage, but you know what you're seeing is what you're seeing. Like, you know you're seeing a show versus AI. It's not always true.
I definitely think that AI poses an opportunity for the theater because, like you're saying, you can you can rely on the fact that the people are real,
Yeah.
which you can't necessarily do if you're watching a video online or anything like that. We don't have, like, really effective AI actors yet, but they're working on that. And yet the people looking for theater to see during Fringe, that's always been the case. It's the
Mhm.
easiest time of year to get an audience. And I think the conversation about AI was almost not even happening during last year's Fringe. It only sort of
Yeah.
started after that and sort of, like, exploded because the world of technology moves quickly, and I don't think anybody was really talking about, AI and the arts in a serious way. It hadn't
Mhm.
become what it is now in terms of,
Yeah.
like, dominating so many conversations, but I think you're right about the opportunity that theater has as a antithesis to AI generated slop.
Yeah. Well, I think it's getting better too. Like, I have to look twice at videos now where I'm like, "Is that a real person?" No, it's not. Okay, that's AI. But before, the 6 fingers was kind of a dead giveaway. You're like, it's not a person," but it is growing so rapidly and getting so much better. That's kind of like it's always a question. And I hope theater stays as the antithesis. I hope we always have theater. I mean, we've had it for probably all of human civilization is some form of somebody getting up and telling a story, so I don't think it's
I don't
going
think it's going
anywhere, but
anywhere either. I have a theory, and that is that the idea of an AI actor is going to fail miserably
I
because
hope so.
the studios want it because they don't have to pay an actor or whatever. But I don't think people connect with it. People want to connect with an actual person, and they cannot connect with an AI actor. They won't be able to see that actor on the red carpet, and they won't be able to see that act. They won't have aspirational feelings about that AI actor, and I think that that's the thing that's going to kill it. But if it doesn't, theater is going to be there because I think that
Yep.
theater will be the thing you can trust.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with that. I hope it is
I
anyway.
mean, it always has been. You're always gonna know that listen, you can put all the video you want into a stage show, but the moment an actor walks out onto the stage, everything changes, right?
Yeah,
Everybody can sense the reality of the person on that stage, and
yeah.
that's when you know that this is theater.
Don't you love that moment? I love that moment. I love it as an actor. I love it as an audience member. I love that moment where it sort of, like, supercharges the air in the room, and you're like, "Okay,
I love that moment
oh,
when the play starts and it suddenly everybody in the audience when the play is really great and everybody in the audience kind of leans forward and you can actually sense everybody breathing at the same time. You can, like, feel that moment where everybody becomes an organism, which is the audience, and I think that's one of my favorite things.
yeah, me too. Me too. Oh, there's nothing like it, like, there really
Yeah,
isn't.
for sure. I wanna talk a little bit about you as a performer, as a person who does theater. Do I have it right that you were cast as Dorothy at the age of 11?
My one and only stint in a musical. Yes, you are absolutely correct. It was my elementary school's production of The Wizard of Oz, and I tried out, and I think I got the part because I was the loudest. Like, I certainly was not the best singer, I promise you that. Not at 11, not today, like, absolutely not. But I think I was pretty loud and probably a little bit bossy, which I still am, so yeah, from 11, and I kind of denied that the arts was a real possibility, and then went to Guelph and sort of bounced around through majors and then started working, and I was working in an office job, and I was like, sorry, there's a motorcycle outside. I was like, if the worst thing that happens is I end up right back here after trying to have a career in the arts, like, so be it, but at least I tried, and here we are.
I would
So,
love
yeah, that's
to unpack that a little bit because so when you auditioned as Dorothy as an 11-year-old, was that just because you
mhm.
wanted to be Dorothy? Was like what was the draw for that?
That's a great question. I am still actually an introverted person. I am, even right now, filled with terror at the thought of going on stage in a month, despite the fact that I wrote the role. I have done the role before. Like, I've just kind of accepted that that's never gonna go away. It takes a lot to get this sort of shell to open up, but it's a lot of fun when it does. So, did I go there necessarily trying to be Dorothy? No, I don't think so. I think it was kind of like, everybody in the school is gonna be in this play. If you wanna try out for the lead, try out for the lead, and I was sort of like, "Well, why not?" And that, mentality has served me very well. Well, why not apply for the Fringe? Why not do this? Why not do a master's? Why not? And here we are. It's just sort of a jump in mentality.
As an introvert myself,
Ah, lovely.
um, for me, I've never suffered from shyness.
Okay,
I've
yep,
never had the it's never been like I've never been, had an issue getting on this stage. The thing for
okay.
me, as I mentioned earlier, flying a line.
Yeah.
I had the thought, I started to sweat profusely. There is suddenly a river of sweat running down my back at the idea of talking to people, of like walking up to people that I don't know and saying, "Can I tell you about my fringe show?" Like, I'm so glad that that isn't happening anymore because when in 2019 when I was doing the Toronto Fringe, doing just that and like taking like 15 minutes before I would do it with my head between my knees trying to breathe.
That's me before I go on stage. I would really love to fly our line. Also, because it's ju one-on-one is no problem, but it's, stage, the audience, the eyes, that's so we're the same but opposite. We're the opposite type of
Yeah, for sure.
introverts.
Absolutely. I love how there are many flavors of introvert.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned bouncing around between majors. Um,
Mhm.
aside from this production of Wizard of Oz, were you doing things in the arts? Were you doing things in theater for
Yep.
school?
Yeah, here and there, like, people would put on plays and I would audition and have small roles in things that people wrote, but I would say it was a spattering and more of a hobby rather than a focus. Like, I didn't seek out the opportunities, which as an artist, I really do think you have to do. I sort of, when they came to me, I accepted them versus, like, being an artist and going after them and trying to get them. So, yes, I was always, I'll call it, tangentially involved in the arts.
What did you initially think you were going to study at university?
So the first year I went into, and this is how indecisive I am, something called academia, which is a program that, oh God, is it academia? I think it is academia, but it was like a mix of arts and science. And so I ended up taking like chemistry and genetics and physics, none of which I did well in. Like, those courses did not go well as English and playwriting, and it was sort of to help people decide, or I don't know if there was like a there's somewhere in life where you can have a career where you use all of those things, but it was for the people who were like, "Maybe I wanna be a scientist, maybe I wanna be an artist," to kind of help them decide, and I think you could go all the way through with a degree in academia, which is not like academia which we think of it. That's why I'm like, "Am I remembering this correctly?"
I just have to say that I think that like, yes, what did you study in school? I studied academia, which is essentially like I studied school.
Yeah, in school. Yeah, like, what a kind of kind of a nonsense.
It's so open-ended, it's so ridiculous, and it's like, yes, I don't know what I want to do, so I will just study school.
And it was, I like, my memory of this is that there wasn't, like, a true curriculum to follow. They were just sort of like, "Pick a course, any course," and I was like philosophy, chemistry, I think I took a hotel and food, like, HAFA was Guelph is known for a hotel and food administration, so I was like, "Sure, let's throw one of those in there." But it was, like, the philosophy courses, the English courses, the writing courses that I did well at and that I enjoyed. And so very quickly, the chemistry courses that I think I barely passed, I think I took a math course too. And I was just like, no, no.
And your second year, did you go theater or did you go, what did you bounce to?
Oh, I think second year was more of a philosophy pivot. Like I'd taken kind of, intro to philosophy and was like, this is interesting. And I remember my mom reminded me of this recently. She was like, do you remember when you wanted to go into medical ethics? And I was like, yeah, that was like a whole phase I had. I didn't want to be a doctor. Like I'm a bit squeamish with blood still. Like cutting just makes me, and I think that's a pretty big part of being a doctor. So I really like helping people, but the medical part, not so much. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll do medical ethics, which has a philosophy element. And then the math got me on that one, though. You have to do math when you're a doctor. I did not
No,
want to.
no, no,
No,
no.
no, no.
Eventually, you found your way. You found your way to studying acting.
Mhm.
What do you think it is that prevented you from admitting that that's what you wanted to do in the first place?
I think it's the rhetoric that that's not a reasonable or reliable career. And I think there was a time where I wanted that stability and reliability, and then realized that the consequences of having those were not consequences that I wanted to necessarily at that point pay. Like it really was kind of sitting in an office, and that was for me, that was a bit of a soul-sucking job, and realizing that I would rather do anything else for not very much money and be happy. And that's kind of what it took to get there. Props to everyone who has an office job, who loves it. I hope you enjoy your benefits. I hope you go for massages every other week.
Listen, as somebody who does have an office job, the benefits are not what you think anymore. A lot of companies are like, we used to give great benefits. We're gonna half-ass it now.
Not anymore. I had a brief when I went back to school, I had great benefits, and I was like, "This is amazing," and just did all of the things, and now I still have actor benefits, like, they're not nothing. I'm not trying to say that I have no benefits. I'll take them, don't get me wrong. 50% off the dentist is
Yeah,
aces. Yeah, I'm all for it, but it's a
it is
trade-off.
a trade-off. I am curious, you
Mhm,
mentioned the rhetoric about acting as a profession. Where was that
mhm.
coming from?
That's a great question. I think in the world of Guelph, like, Guelph still has like, Guelph is the most adorable town in the whole world. It's very green, it's very kind, it's very positive, but it's very kind of small town linear, as in you go to school, you get an office job, you have a family, you buy a house, like, things that we're kind of seeing eroding now because of the cost of living anyway, but, like, that was just sort of the path that you took, and so it took kind of walking that path for me to realize that I did not want to walk that path, and here we are.
Was there ever
No.
anything at like when you were in high school, did you ever mention wanting to do theater and somebody dissuaded you or was that just it wasn't something you ever like voiced?
I think everybody dissuaded me. Everybody was like, "No, no, you don't wanna that's not what you want to do. You want a pension."
But no, because you don't get to have one of those anymore. Those don't
Oh,
exist.
no. No, no. That's not hey, yeah. Joke's
Was
on
on
you
you.
guys.
You said I could get a pension. That was a lie. What's funny is, because when I was in school, like I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in theater. I knew I wanted to do theater from the time I
Oh,
was like 7, like maybe even before.
amazing.
And so there was nobody was ever gonna. Occasionally, somebody would be like, you know what else you could do? Clerical work. I'd be like, "The fuck are you saying? I said this, you said clerical? The fuck is that?" And then eventually when it was like time to apply for colleges and things, the guidance counselor, you go to the meeting with a guidance counselor and they're like, "What do you want to study?" And I said, "I want to study acting." And they said, "I don't know how to help you."
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, "But isn't
I
that
think
your job to know that?"
yeah, it is. I work with Brandon James Similot, who is an incredibly talented actor and also a very good writer. He is my like go-to story editor, my partner in crime, and he's one of those people that went to his guidance counselor and said, "I want to be an actor." And I think they like LOL'd in his face and were like, "Okay, here's a pamphlet for the trades. Like, good luck to you." Like you're just it was just a hard no.
Wonderful.
bless his stubborn heart, he did not listen.
No, obviously not. Well, I mean, the thing is that like what I mean, they think they're doing you a favor.
They
They
do.
think they're
They do.
saving you from a life of heartache. But I've had the office job that just makes me want to curl up and stop living. You know,
Mhm.
that anybody who's ever like the expectation is you're going to do this. That's going to be your life. That's just like
Right.
that. Not everybody can do that.
No. No, not at all. And I don't wish that for people. I don't want that for people. Live your life, let your soul be free, let your soul sing, insert other cliches.
I want to come back to minimum for just for a second. Just as we were sort of like heading to the end of our time, I wanted to ask about your ensemble is returning, and this is I always think of like when you're remounting a show, you get to reinvestigate it. Right? You get to
Yeah.
re-examine what you did before. You get to like dig into the text. What did we learn last time? And so you get to the opportunity to make different choices and things like that. What does working with that same ensemble again, but with a different director, what has that taught you about the show?
That's a great question. It's first of all such a joy and a privilege to have the same people. Like we've developed a language. I'll kind of do anything for them. I'll go anywhere for them. My stage manager has done all 4 shows, Morgan Angus, who is an incredibly talented stage manager. If you can find them and hire them, you will they're so professional and wonderful. There is strength and a credit to everything that they do. Morgan's wonderful and I would go anywhere for them. So that's great. It's also a reliability and it's a comfort to me. Like when I talk about the terror of the things that have to happen when I do a fringe show, it's such a comfort to know that I have this team and this ensemble coming with me. It's great. Brandon James Sim is playing the premier, and he's again an incredibly talented actor, a wonderful collaborator. I just trust him with my life and with my characters, which is great. And, Gavin Sibley, who actually was a bit of a newcomer, has also come through all fringes with me, as has Brandon, and I trust Gavin immensely. There've been moments on stage in our productions where sort of there was a crisis, and it's been Gavin that saved them every time. He's coming out of the performance program at TMU, just graduated out of his 4th year, and, like, Gavin is gonna go so far in this industry. He's just so talented that I dread the day when he's too busy to do our productions and our show. I really do dread
Yeah.
them. And TJ Chesley, I've worked with before in film and stage. TJ directed our production of It's Always Hazy in Hamilton in 2024 and was unfortunately too busy last year and has come back this year. And the depth of story that he has, like I wrote these characters, I created this world, and he points out things to me that blow my mind. I'm just like, oh my god, you're right. So to have a director come in and do that when I'm the playwright, I'm the actor, I've been on stage with this role it's so refreshing. It's such a breath of fresh air. It's wonderful. And Elijah McLeod, our stage manager in 2020 or assistant stage manager in 2024 is also back as our ASM and will be our stage manager for one performance this year, which I'm really excited about. So I mean to have all of these people that I trust implicitly with me is just so comforting in a sea of terror for an introvert who is putting her heart and soul out there.
Well, here's a question. As we're closing off, we're as we record this, Fringe is just over a month away,
Mhm.
month and a half, as we record this ish.
Yep. Well, we open June 30th, and that's like about 4 it's about 4 weeks away.
Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It's about a month away. So
Yeah.
that's pretty coming up pretty quickly. But the question that I have for you is,
Mhm.
what are you
Oh,
most
Phil.
looking forward to?
I am looking forward to the first moment of walking on stage, like both dreading and because it means that everything is done, the chips have fallen where they're gonna fall. It's not done, like, marketing is ongoing through the run, but it's just the thrill and the excitement of walking on stage with this production for a Toronto audience, and I can't stress enough how excited I am for a Toronto audience's reaction. Like, I really, really hope this is gonna resonate with people. I hope they're gonna laugh. I hope they're going to think, and then I hope they laugh some more. So that's the big is that first moment of walking on stage. And the first show, it's always a relief to me. The first time people laugh, I'm like, okay, if they laughed once, they will probably laugh again. We're going to be okay. So that's that first. And the first thing I try to do is get a joke out. So those moments are very much simultaneous. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
moment when you're waiting for the audience to laugh, whether you are on stage or off stage, it's that thing where you're like, all right, this is working. Because I've done shows where like this audience that's sitting there, this is the first time anybody is seeing this show outside of the people who rehearsed it. We think it's funny,
Right. Yes.
but they're gonna tell us. And so there's the whole, you
Yeah.
just like can feel like the entire cast like inward, like internally leaning forward, waiting. Is this joke gonna
Yeah.
work? And it's such a relief
Yep.
when it does.
Oh, it's a relief, it's excitement, it's all of these kind of this smorgasbord of emotions that you're reacting to generally on stage. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great. It's
for sure.
and there's no other feeling like it. Like, I don't know if you find that in your shows, but you can't replicate that feeling with much else.
No,
So
absolutely not. It's the reason why we do it, right? Nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it to get rich. So we do it because of that, of the love for it and how it makes us feel in the moment.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Victoria, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to minimum at Toronto Fringe.
Great. Phil, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Stageworthy. I am thrilled that you are here. If you haven't already, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like this episode, leave a comment so I know you were here, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so that whenever I put out a new episode, you'll get notified that a new episode is available. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure that you are subscribed. Go to your favorite podcast app, search for Stageworthy, and hit the follow button. And while you're there, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure that you leave a rating and a review. Ratings and reviews help new people to find the show. It helps to boost the podcast in the algorithm, so it's more likely to come up when people search for it. And so if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, speaking of gratitude, I have a Patreon, and I can't do this show without the people who've chosen to back me on Patreon. It costs money to put out a podcast. It costs money to have a website, to have a place where you can upload the audio files so they can be distributed. Editing software costs money. Transcripts, which I'm still working on getting the back catalog entirely updated with transcripts, that all costs money. So all of these things cost money, and I can't do this show without my backers on Patreon. I'm so grateful to them because I literally wouldn't be able to afford to do this show anymore without them. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see their names on the screen right now. But otherwise, they know who they are, and they know that I'm so grateful to them. You just listen to the audio version. You will also see their names in the show notes. But the most important thing is that if you want to be one of the people that helps me to make this show, please go to patreon.com/stageworthy and become a patron. Patrons get early access to episodes. They get to participate in some conversations about theater in Canada and theater in general. And the more people that join, the more I will be able to offer my patrons. Go to patreon.com/stageworthy and become a patron. My guest next week is Chris Cracknell. Chris is a composer and theater creator and musician based in Hamilton who's bringing his musical Pukamara, Mistress of B-Roll to the Toronto Fringe. Fascinating show. I can't wait for you to hear about it. And that's coming up next week on Stageworthy.